Can I ask you a question? Have you ever met someone who walked into a room and somehow everyone seemed to notice them? Not because they were the most handsome, not because they were wearing expensive clothes, not because they were the loudest. In fact, sometimes they barely spoke at all. Yet somehow, people listened when they did. Their opinions carried weight. Their presence felt different. Now here's another question. Have you ever met the opposite kind of person? Someone who talked non-stop, tried hard to impress everyone, wanted to be liked by everybody, yet people constantly interrupted them, ignored their opinions, or simply didn't take them seriously. What's the difference? Money? Looks? Education? Not necessarily. More often than not, the difference is something much quieter. It's called respect. And here's the interesting part. Respect isn't something people decide to give you in one dramatic moment. It's something your daily habits quietly earn. Most people think respect comes from having a powerful title, being rich, being famous, or having the perfect words. But in everyday life, respect is built in much smaller moments. Moments that most people don't even notice. Today, let's talk about those moments, because once you understand them, you'll never look at confidence or respect the same way again. Before we go any further, let's clear up one of the biggest misunderstandings. Being liked and being respected are not the same thing. Have you ever met the opposite kind of person? Think back to your school days. There was probably that one teacher everyone loved. They joked with students, made learning fun. People enjoyed their class. But there was probably another teacher, not necessarily fun, not necessarily strict. Yet whenever they spoke, the room became quiet. Students listened. Why? Because respect has very little to do with popularity. You can be liked and still be taken for granted. You can be respected, even by people who don't always agree with you. The healthiest goal isn't to make everyone like you. That's impossible. The healthier goal is to become someone whose character speaks before your words do. Let me tell you something I've noticed. The people who desperately chase respect usually lose it. Think about it. Have you ever met someone who constantly reminds everyone how important they are? I know important people. I have money. I've accomplished this. I've accomplished that. It's exhausting. Why? Because real confidence doesn't need a microphone. Imagine two lions. One keeps roaring every 5 seconds. The other quietly walks through the forest. Which one seems more powerful? Usually, the quieter one. Because strength doesn't feel the need to constantly announce itself. The same is true with people. The more secure someone becomes, the less they feel the need to prove it. Let me introduce you to someone we'll call James. James started a new job. He wanted everyone to like him, so during his first week, he said yes to everything. Can you stay late? Sure. Can you finish my report? No problem. Can you swap your day off? Of course. At first, everyone thought James was incredibly helpful, but something strange happened. A few months later, people didn't appreciate him more. They simply expected more. The same coworkers who thanked him in the beginning now became frustrated whenever he finally said, "I can't." Why? Because James had accidentally taught people that his own needs always came last. And people usually continue treating us the way we teach them to. That lesson changed my perspective. Sometimes the way people treat us isn't only about who they are. It's also about the boundaries we've shown them. Before we continue, I want you to think about someone you deeply respect. It could be your father, your mother, a pastor, a teacher, a boss, a friend. Now ask yourself, what exactly makes you respect them? Was it their money? Or was it something deeper? Maybe it's because they keep their word. Maybe they stay calm under pressure. Maybe they don't gossip. Maybe they're fair. Maybe they admit when they're wrong. Notice something? Respect usually grows from character, not image. Can I be honest? One of the fastest ways to lose respect is to become someone whose words can't be trusted. Think about how often we make small promises. I'll call you tomorrow. I'll be there by 6. I'll send it tonight. Sometimes we mean well. Life gets busy. Things happen. We've all been there. But here's what many people don't realize. Every kept promise tells people, "You can rely on me." Every broken promise tells people, "My words have an expiration date." Trust isn't built through grand speeches. It's built through small moments of consistency. That's why some people don't have to convince others to believe them. Their history already speaks for them. Let's imagine two people during an argument. The first person raises their voice, interrupts constantly, points fingers, tries to win. The second person listens, pauses before answering, speaks calmly, refuses to insult anyone. Now ask yourself, which one seems stronger? Most of us instinctively choose the second person, because emotional control is a form of strength. Anyone can explode. Not everyone can stay composed. One of the greatest signs of maturity is choosing your response instead of reacting to every emotion that knocks on your door. One of the things that amazes me about Jesus is that he never chased status. He didn't need to. People followed him because of who he was, not because he demanded admiration. In Matthew 20:26-28, Jesus taught that whoever wants to become great must become a servant. At first that sounds backwards. Our world says, take the spotlight. Jesus says, serve. Our world says, promote yourself. Jesus says, lift others. And here's the irony. The people who genuinely serve others with humility often become the people others respect the most. Not because they demanded respect, but because their character quietly earned it. So if respect isn't about being loud, or showing off, or trying to please everyone, then what habits quietly make people trust you, value you, and naturally listen when you speak? Some of the answers are surprisingly simple, but almost nobody practices them consistently. And one of them might completely change the way people respond to you starting today. Can I tell you one of the simplest ways to gain respect? It has nothing to do with money, nothing to do with status, nothing to do with having the perfect words. It's listening. Not the kind of listening where you're secretly preparing your next response. I mean genuinely listening. Have you ever shared something important with someone and halfway through your sentence they interrupted with their own story? It's frustrating, isn't it? You walk away feeling unseen. Now think about the opposite experience. Think about someone who gave you their full attention. No phone, no interruptions, no competition, just presence. How did it make you feel? Valued, respected, important. The funny thing is that most people want to be interesting, but very few people focus on being interested. And yet, being interested is often what makes you interesting. Let's talk about something uncomfortable. Accountability. Most people hate being wrong. Let's be honest. It hurts the ego. The moment we make a mistake, our minds become creative. We explain, we justify, we defend, we blame circumstances, we blame stress, we blame other people. Anything except simply saying, I was wrong. But have you noticed something? The people we respect the most aren't usually the people who never make mistakes. They're the people who own them. A person who can say, that was my fault. I shouldn't have said that. I handled that poorly. Immediately becomes more trustworthy. Why? Because accountability signals maturity. It tells people, you don't have to waste energy figuring out where you stand with me. And in a world full of excuses, accountability stands out. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you sincerely apologized without adding an explanation? Not, I'm sorry, but not, I'm sorry if you felt that way. Just, I was wrong, I'm sorry. Think about it. Because respect often grows in the moments where our pride shrinks. The power of emotional stability. Imagine you're on a ship during a storm. The waves are huge. The wind is violent. The sky is dark. What's the first thing you'd look for? A lighthouse. Something stable. Something reliable. Something that doesn't move every time conditions change. People are exactly the same. We're naturally drawn toward emotional stability, not perfection. Stability. The person who doesn't panic at every problem. The person who doesn't explode during every disagreement. The person who remains thoughtful when everyone else becomes reactive. Those people earn enormous respect because they become emotional safe places. And let me tell you something. The world desperately needs emotional safe places. There is already enough drama, enough outrage, enough chaos. People remember the person who brought calm. Why gossip quietly destroys respect. Can we talk about something almost everyone has done? Gossip. It feels harmless sometimes. A quick conversation, a little information, a little speculation. Nothing serious until people realize something important. If you constantly talk about others when they're absent, people assume you do the same thing when they're absent. Trust starts disappearing. Respect starts shrinking because nobody feels safe around a person who treats private information casually. Think about the people you admire most. Chances are they're not constantly discussing other people's mistakes. They're focused on improving themselves. The quiet confidence of not needing approval. This one changed my life. Have you ever noticed how exhausting it is trying to make everyone happy? You say yes when you want to say no. You agree when you actually disagree. You stay silent when you should speak. You shrink yourself so other people remain comfortable. And then one day you realize something. The people you're trying hardest to please still aren't satisfied. That's because approval is a moving target. No matter how fast you run, it keeps moving. Respect, however, grows when people see authenticity, not arrogance. Authenticity, the ability to be yourself without needing constant validation. Let me tell you about two employees. Both worked hard. Both were intelligent. Both wanted promotions. The first employee constantly reminded everyone how much work he was doing. Every success became an announcement. Every achievement became a presentation. The second employee quietly focused on results. He wasn't invisible. He simply let his work speak first. A year later, guess who people respected more? The second employee, because confidence whispers. Insecurity often shouts. Now, this doesn't mean hiding your achievements. It means not depending on applause to feel valuable. The habit of keeping your emotions from driving the car. Imagine your emotions are passengers. Fear, anger, jealousy, frustration. They're all sitting in the car. That's normal. Everyone has emotions. The problem begins when one of them grabs the steering wheel. Have you ever sent a text while angry and regretted it later? Most of us have. Have you ever made a decision while emotional that looked foolish a week later? We've all been there. Respected people feel emotions deeply. They simply don't let emotions make every decision. They pause, reflect, think, then respond. That pause is more powerful than most people realize. One of the most respected figures in Scripture wasn't respected because of his position. He was respected because of his character. Think about Joseph. He was betrayed, falsely accused, forgotten. Yet throughout those hardships, he remained trustworthy, reliable, faithful. People trusted him with responsibility because his character remained consistent regardless of his circumstances. That's a powerful lesson. Your circumstances don't create your character. They reveal it. And character is the foundation of lasting respect. So far we've talked about listening, accountability, emotional stability, avoiding gossip, living without chasing approval. But there's another habit that quietly changes how people see you. In fact, it may be the difference between being tolerated and being truly respected, and it begins with something most people completely overlook: your boundaries. Let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed that some people seem to attract disrespect wherever they go? At work, in relationships, among friends, even within their own families. Now, before you misunderstand me, I'm not saying people deserve poor treatment. Nobody deserves to be mistreated, but sometimes people unknowingly teach others how to treat them. Think about it. If every time someone crosses your boundaries, you remain silent, what lesson are they learning? If every time someone disrespects your time, you immediately adjust your plans, what lesson are they learning? If every time someone takes advantage of your kindness, you keep rewarding the behavior, what lesson are they learning? People learn from what we tolerate, and over time, tolerance becomes permission. That's why self-respect is so important. Not because it makes you better than others, but because it teaches others how to value you. This is where many people get confused. Especially good-hearted people, especially those raised to be helpful. Many people think kindness means never disappointing anyone. But kindness and people-pleasing are not the same thing. Kindness comes from love. People-pleasing comes from fear. Fear of rejection, fear of conflict, fear of disappointing someone. Here's a simple test. If saying no fills you with guilt every single time, there's a good chance you're not operating from kindness. You're operating from fear. And fear is a terrible leader, because eventually you'll become exhausted, trying to carry expectations that were never yours to carry. Take a moment. Think about the last time you said yes when you wanted to say no. Why did you do it? Was it because you genuinely wanted to help? Or because you were afraid of how the other person might react? Be honest with yourself, because self-awareness is where transformation begins. Here's something I've learned. People are impressed by talent, but they respect consistency. Talent gets attention. Consistency earns trust. Think about the friend who always shows up when they say they will, the coworker who can always be counted on, the family member who remains dependable year after year. Those people become pillars in other people's lives, not because they're perfect, but because they're predictable in the best possible way. You know where they stand. You know what they value. You know what to expect. And in a world full of uncertainty, consistency feels incredibly valuable. Can I share something that took me years to understand? Not every thought needs to become a sentence. Some people talk so much that their words lose weight. Others speak carefully, and because they speak carefully, people listen carefully. Have you ever been in a meeting where one person talks constantly? After a while, people stop paying attention. Then another person speaks only a few times, but every time they speak, the room listens. Why? Because scarcity creates value. The same principle applies to communication. Respect grows when your words have purpose. This doesn't mean becoming quiet. It means becoming intentional. Speak to contribute, not merely to fill silence. One habit that instantly destroys respect. Now let's look at the opposite side. What's one habit that instantly damages respect? blaming everyone else for your life. We've all met people like this. Every failure is someone else's fault. Every problem has another person to blame. Every setback comes with an excuse. After a while, people stop listening, not because they don't care, because responsibility is attractive. Victimhood without accountability is exhausting. The moment you begin taking ownership of your choices, something changes. You stop giving away your power, and people notice. Strong people understand something that many never learn. You cannot control what people think, what people say, how people behave, or how people feel about you. But you can control your character, your decisions, your attitude, and your response. That's where real power lives, not in controlling others, in controlling yourself, and that's one of the most respected qualities a person can possess. One of the most remarkable things about Jesus is that he never seemed controlled by public opinion. Think about it. Crowds praised him, then crowds criticized him. People celebrated him, then many abandoned him. Yet his mission remained the same. His values remained the same. His character remained the same. That's true confidence. Not confidence that comes from applause. Confidence that comes from purpose. The world teaches us to build our identity on popularity. But popularity changes. Purpose lasts. By now you may have noticed something. Respect isn't built through one big moment. It's built through hundreds of small moments. Listening when others speak, keeping your word, managing your emotions, avoiding gossip, setting healthy boundaries, taking responsibility, being consistent, speaking with intention, living with purpose. None of these habits are flashy. None of them will make headlines. But together, they create a person others naturally trust. And trust is the foundation of respect. Before we finish, I want you to think about one question. Not 10 questions, just one. If someone spent 1 week observing your daily habits, what would they learn about your character? Not what you say you value, what your actions reveal you value. Because that's where respect begins. Not with reputation, with character. Here's the truth. Most people spend their lives trying to look important. Very few spend their lives becoming valuable, and there is a difference. Looking important might impress people temporarily. Becoming valuable impacts people permanently. The most respected people aren't usually the loudest. They're not always the richest. They're not always the most famous. They're simply the people whose actions consistently match their values. People trust them. People rely on them. People feel safe around them. And in a world where trust is becoming rare, that kind of character stands out. So don't focus on demanding respect. Focus on becoming the kind of person whose habits quietly earn it. Because real respect is never forced, it's recognized. At Mentivo, we believe understanding human behavior isn't about manipulating people. It's about becoming a better version of yourself. If this conversation challenged you, share it with someone who is working on their growth journey. And remember, the habits you repeat every day quietly become the reputation you carry tomorrow. Until next time, keep growing, keep observing, and never stop learning what makes people truly remarkable.